So welcome everybody to this memorial service and celebration for our friend and brother Bruce Jackson. And I'm very pleased that we could gather today and just create some space to reflect and to remember Bruce. We have people here that are representative of various aspects of Bruce's life. And I'm just really pleased that you took time to come and to be here today as we remember him. And I hope that by doing this together, that there could be some connection for us one to another, that there could be some comfort and possibly even some closure. And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into our program. I'm going to use my screen share button and bring this up. All right. So Bruce Jackson. So I'm going to scroll down so that you can see our program for today. So just to give a quick overview, I've got some opening remarks, which is what we're doing now. And we will recite a prayer together. It's a Gaelic blessing, and we will do that all together. Mm-hmm. After that, I have a short film called American Shokunin, and it's about the art of bonsai. And you probably noticed the bonsai theme, and that's because bonsai was something that Bruce dearly loved. Yes. And I will be saying some words in eulogy for Bruce called Bruce Jackson Creating Bonsai Well. After that is completed, we'll have a time of sharing. So if you have some words or thoughts or memories, that will be a perfect time for you to share that with all of us. And then after that time of sharing is over, I will close us with a benediction and we will end our time together. So if you would, I would like to ask you to mute your microphone, and because we are going to say this prayer together, and if we all have our mics on, then it can sound a little strange. So if you would take a moment and mute your microphone. And we'll begin with this prayer, a Gaelic blessing. And as you read these words, we can say these words to one another as a blessing, and we can also say these words to our own souls. So just think about that as we read these words together. To one another and to our own soul. So a Gaelic blessing. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon and stars pour their healing light on you. Deep peace of Christ, the light of the world, to you. Deep peace of Christ to you. So now, if you didn't know, now you know, Bruce loved bonsai. And I have a short video presentation that I would like for us to watch. It's just under 8 minutes. And as I said, there can be some lag. The picture quality may not be perfect, but I hope you enjoy it, and give me a moment and I'm going to set that up and put it in motion.
think once you start practicing bonsai, and once bonsai gets inside you, you'll never look at trees the same again. Because you start realizing this magnificent microcosm that's happening inside every tree. And you see similarities to trees and people. If you think abstractly enough, you can draw a direct correlation between almost everything a human being does and everything a tree does. Trees and people, almost virtually identical. We need all but two essential elements. That's all that differentiates a tree and a human being. Two essential elements. Otherwise, a tree and a human being need exactly the same thing. Time plays a tremendous role in human beings in terms of our character and our personality. And when we're young, we're very sharp. Maybe we see in black and white. Maybe we're rambunctious, high energy. As you get older, maybe you lose some of that energy, some of that pizzazz. Maybe you become a little bit more able to step back and think about things. When you start to look at the way time impacts a tree, it's very similar. Scars that looked very artificial when they were first created start to look natural as they weather and they age, and they become a part of the tree that naturally occurred as far as that tree is concerned. You can't duplicate that. You can't add bark to a tree and have it look natural. You can't take away the tool marks and have it look like it was never artificially done. That's something only time can create. When you engage in something where you are pushing the limit of a living thing's ability to survive for the purpose of creating something even more beautiful than what existed prior to that engagement, the relationship and the bond that forms in that creative process and walking the line of life and death is something that is, I don't know if you could duplicate. And then to see the tree survive and to see the tree respond, for it to get more healthy, for it to grow into that design, for it to communicate back to you what it liked and didn't like, and then to respond to that again. And this back and forth collaboration until the conversation becomes so similar, the tree has taken on what you were hoping for, and you've taken on what the tree is hoping for. You've closed the gap in that collaboration. That process it's like a drug. Respect is probably at the most fundamental level of being able to do bonsai well. And doing bonsai well doesn't mean being able to make a beautiful tree. It means being able to cultivate a healthy tree through all of the different processes that bonsai involves. If you don't respect the fact that life and death is a very real part of the creative process with bonsai, and maybe the one thing that really separates it and differentiates it from any other media that art can be created from. If you don't respect that line, you don't have anything in the end except for a big dead tree. And what if that tree is 1,000 years old? We might be here for 80 years, 90 if we're lucky, 100 if we're really out of the ordinary. That tree's been here for 1,000 years. Do you have the right to not respect that? I don't think so. I think there are ways to create a bonsai well, but I don't know if there are ways to create a bonsai right. You always still have to fall back on the fundamental concepts of horticulture. Are you giving the tree what it needs? And then from a design perspective, are you respecting the visual boundaries of design? Are you creating something that's going to be beautiful? Are the lines beautiful? Is the form beautiful? Is the balance what it needs to be for that tree to be visually appealing? That's creating bonsai well. Creating bonsai right, I don't think it exists. When I went and I started my apprenticeship, there isn't anybody that can ever explain to you what that means. An apprentice is somebody who's going to not only learn a craft, but also grow as a person and observe the humility necessary to not only learn, but continue to grow after their apprenticeship. The one thing that I realized when I was apprenticing is that to become a master, 6 years is it's the very beginning. A master is somebody who every single day tries to pursue perfection at their chosen endeavor. It sounds beautiful and it sounds simple when you think about being a master. Okay, every day I'm going to do this and I'm going to try to do it my best. Well, there's a lot of days that you don't want to go do it. And there's a lot of days that you would rather take the shortcut than do it as well as it could be done and better than the day before. And know that tomorrow you're going to do it better than you did that day. So I think a master is somebody that has the work ethic, that has the discipline, that has the passion, and has the talent, to do what they do every day incrementally better until the day they die. A master doesn't retire. A master doesn't stop. They do it until they're dead. It's a part of them. It's who you are.
Okay, so welcome back.
If you know any Christians, or if you happen to be one, you've probably heard the word gospel.
Okay. All right. So I think I had the autoplay option on YouTube. All right. Well, thanks everybody for that. I'm going to move now into some words that I've prepared as I thought about Bruce and as I just thought about our time together today. So I'm calling this eulogy Bruce Jackson, Creating Bonsai Well. Creating Bonsai Well. So if you didn't know, now you know. Bruce loved bonsai. Bruce loved design. And I actually have a tree here. Let's see if I can get it. This is actually one of Bruce's bonsai. I'm very pleased to have that. That came to me yesterday, so thanks to his housemates Kelly and Lance, I was able to receive that and a couple more. So Bruce won many blue ribbons from his entries of bonsai at the Ventura County Fair, and I suspect that he was recognized for his designs at work too. An unknown author wrote, quote, "The bonsai tree symbolizes some of the keys to a lasting life: nurturing, patience, caring, and growth." In Japanese, bonsai literally means potted plant. Bon means plant and bon means pot and sai means plant. So bonsai, it's an art form that dates back over 1,000 years. It originated in China and made its way to Japan and developed into the art form that we know today. Bonsai, it's about design in a two-way relationship. Bonsai is unique in this way, and it's a unique type of art because it involves two living entities, the artist and the tree. So, as I said, bonsai, it's fundamentally about design, form, life, and beauty. And it requires processes of time and intimate interaction between the artist and the tree. So creating bonsai well requires years of attention and communication from the artist to the tree and from the tree to the artist. The artist observes the tree, envisions the form to come, and shapes the tree toward that vision. The artist or the master makes sure that the tree has what it needs to thrive within the limits and boundaries of form and design. Those limits can be pushed, and sometimes the tree is wounded by the artist to propel it to the next level of form and beauty. A branch may be cut, bark may be removed, and the limbs may be twisted and turned in a new direction. And Bruce was someone who related to the world through form and design. And I see this connection between his work as a draftsman and as a practitioner of bonsai. Bruce loved design, and Bruce loved bonsai, another form of design. He was devoted to bonsai for many years, and he was also devoted to his employer, who he worked for some 23 years, Bemco, as a draftsman. And so I thank you, those of you who were his colleagues, for being with us here today. And Bruce spent years attending and nurturing his bonsai plants. And in a way, Bruce symbolized bonsai. He, like the tree in the hands of the master, was in a process of change and growth and transition. He was growing in life and knowledge and wisdom and in relationships. And yet, Bruce also loved frivolous stuff like F Troop and Father Knows Best and The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And I came to understand that there were times of great wounding in Bruce's life. But here's a question. Was it possible that just like the injuries that the bonsai tree experiences, the injury could be transformed over time into something beautiful? What do you think? Is it possible that there was a master in heaven that used injury to create a more beautiful form in Bruce? Bruce believed that. In his early life, Bruce experienced significant injuries. But later, because Bruce found a loving, caring, and merciful master in Jesus, he also experienced the joy of healing. Now, I knew Bruce in those times of healing. Part of those healing times happened in our community of worship at the Ventura Vineyard Church. And I had the privilege of seeing Bruce Jackson every Sunday for at least the last decade, maybe longer. He was always there. Just like we heard from Randy earlier, he was always there. He showed up early. And so he was a regular, he was familiar, he was a predictable presence in our church community week after week and month after month and year after year. And because I was one of the prayer team leaders, I got to know Bruce through his participation in the prayer team. And the prayer team, it's a group of volunteers who are present to anyone who would like a personal touch after our service has ended. And so as a prayer team member, Bruce was available to listen, give encouragement, and pray for anyone who asked for it. And since we were often together for those prayer times, there was conversation afterward. And I got to know Bruce little by little, bit by bit over time. And, you know, even though Bruce was a predictable Sunday presence and he was always a regular fixture at the coffee bar before service started, he was a coffee and donuts kind of guy. You know, Bruce was still somewhat like an iceberg to me because I saw the part of him that was above the waterline, but there was a lot to Bruce that was below the waterline that I don't think I got to see clearly, and perhaps there were few that did. So in regard to his early life, I only have a few details. I believe he was born on May 2nd, 1955 in New Jersey. And we know a little bit about Bruce's early life. And as I said, even people who knew him well didn't all have all of these details, but probably because his early experiences in life were painful and traumatic, and it was easier not to talk about them. Not long ago, Bruce told me the story of how he lost his father. When Bruce was a child, perhaps 10, 12 years of age, his father needed to move a large appliance to another place in the house. And his mother told him to go help his dad, and like kids do, he said no, he refused. However, in this instance, while his dad was moving the appliance on his own, he had a massive heart attack, and he died right there in the family home. And so Bruce's mother, shocked and overwhelmed, blamed him for his father's heart attack. She said, "If you had helped your father, he wouldn't have died." Before the day ended, his mother was so distraught, she had a complete breakdown. She was removed from the home and moved to an institution. So imagine that. Bruce lost his mother and his father on the same day. And in addition to that, he was given this message that it was his fault, that he was the cause of his father's heart attack. And of course, that's obviously impossible, but for a child, it's really hard to escape that notion. And so he carried that psychological burden and that wound with him for a long time. Now, soon after that, Bruce's uncle took him in, and so he went to live with family, but Bruce didn't feel at home there. He felt mistreated and misunderstood. And so eventually, Bruce went to East Hampton High School in New York, and he graduated in 1973. And as a heartbroken teenager, Bruce left home soon after graduation and came to California to start a new life, to hit the reset button. And I understand he hitchhiked most of the way. He attended Ventura College, and in 1975, he obtained a certificate in drafting and design. Design would be Bruce's path forward, but not before falling into a very dark and dangerous world, the world of addiction. Bruce, as with many people who experience desperate trauma, found relief temporarily in drugs. And Bruce struggled for a period of years. But that struggle came to an end after he had an encounter. I believe that Bruce encountered God. And this encounter happened not long after he was picked up off the street by the Oxnard Rescue Mission. And so while he was given structure to get clean and sober at the program, Bruce encountered real forgiveness. He encountered hope, and he encountered the promise of a different life while he was there at the program. And I believe Bruce found a relationship with Jesus there, because it was clear from his life thereafter that his relationship with God and his journey of faith was always a priority. For the first time while Bruce was at the mission, he received prayer. And not only that, but he experienced a change inside. He felt that many of his wounds and traumas were starting to decrease in strength. And I think these early experiences are why Bruce loved to pray for others. If anyone was beyond the reach of prayer, it had been him. And since God could help him, a broken down addict, Bruce thought God could help others through his prayers. And so Bruce faithfully served in our community's prayer team for many, many years, and he never missed a meeting. Never. And despite some of Bruce's quirks and his rough mannerisms, he prayed for people earnestly and powerfully. So after leaving the mission with sobriety firmly in place, Bruce could follow his passion for design. And design became Bruce's way to support himself and make a living. And it was more than a job for Bruce, and I know that from talking to you, his colleagues there at BEMCO. And sadly, suddenly, Bruce left this world in August of 2020 at the tender age of 65. And so in closing, I think Bruce would be pleased to know that we took a moment to understand his passion for design and for bonsai, and for their significance in understanding life and how to create bonsai well. I think Bruce would like us to know, as he did, that all of us can be like the trees in relationship with the master. Like we just saw in the film, American Shokunin. The master, he searches the forest and he finds the tree he wants. He travels difficult paths to find the special one. The master takes the tree into his intimate care and attention. Bruce was one of the special ones. And over time, the chosen tree, it's nurtured, it's formed, and it's shaped into a beautiful work of art that the master loves. And sometimes the tree is wounded and it experiences loss under the hand of the master, but there is a greater form and beauty to be seen over time. And meanwhile, while the master watches carefully the tree and makes sure it has everything it needs to thrive, and I think Bruce would be happy that we thought about these things. And on the lighter side, Bruce would probably be happy if you listened to some music like U2 or The Chicks or Michael Franti. These were some of his favorite bands. And I think Bruce would be pleased if we would understand that we too have been graced with trees in our own gardens, our spheres of life and influence. Trees that are waiting for our nurture and patience and caring and growth. A son or a daughter or a coworker, a student, a friend, or a neighbor. Do we have the vision and patience to see how these trees could grow and change under our loving care? These were aspects of Bruce's life, or I should say there were aspects of Bruce's life that I missed because I didn't take the time while he was alive to ask questions and to listen. But I'm grateful that he has given me the opportunity as I prepared these words today to just see this connection between my life and bonsai. I'm thankful to Bruce for helping me appreciate more fully the beauty of form and design. And I will miss Bruce. I will miss his presence in our church community. And I know he will be missed by his colleagues and his coworkers. So finally, may each of us find comfort in knowing that for Bruce, the end of his life here as we knew it was not the end, but it was a transition to hope. Hope for his resurrection with all of those who are in Christ Jesus. Paul the apostle, he wrote a letter of encouragement to one of his proteges named Titus. And in chapter 3, Paul wrote these words. Our Savior Jesus poured out new life so generously. God's gift has restored our relationship with him and given us back our lives. And there's more life to come, an eternity of life. You can count on this. And that's Paul writing to Titus. So Bruce believed these words, and I find comfort in them as I think about Bruce's passing. And so I would just like to say thank you for listening and thank you for your presence here today to remember our friend and our brother, Bruce Jackson. And may we all create bonsai well as Bruce did.
Amen.
Amen. Yes.
Thank you. Wonderful. All right. So at this time, I'm going to open it up. Please unmute yourselves. I'd love to hear if you have any anecdotes, stories, memories, just anything you'd like to share. Now's your chance. So
I might as well jump in.
Okay, Matt, please
So
do.
Matt,
I can't.
yeah.
I feel pretty motivated. There's a couple things. I had some sort of almost like scripted things to say, and then now, based on what I've just heard, I have to alter that a little bit because there. I mean, let me just start by saying, well, it's like basically, to steal a line from Bruce, because that's what when he said anything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get right down to business. That's what Bruce did. That's what he did. I would walk in at 8 o'clock. Well, hopefully 8 o'clock. Because
Randy?
boss, as Bruce's boss, I was always afraid of showing up late because he'd be mad at me. And, you'd go to the fridge, you'd put something in the fridge for later, and you'd turn around, and Bruce would be standing there staring you down with a drawing in his hand, saying, Matt, I need to know what size valve goes on this drawing. And I'd be like, all right, well, I can look that up for you. Good morning, by the way. So, yeah, Bruce got right down to business. We have an expression at the office, being snowed under. Being snowed under is when Bruce is bringing you drawing after drawing after drawing for you to review. And at the end of the week, your desk basically looks like a snowdrift of drawings for just waiting for you to review. And I mean, there was like at one point we had 4 guys. We couldn't keep up with Bruce. He was still just piling drawings on us. I mean, this guy, he was a workhorse, Bruce. I wish I had a flashy story, like one story where I could talk about how Bruce ran the ball in the end zone and scored a touchdown and spiked the ball and did a victory dance. And although that might be a fun visual, that really wasn't what Bruce was. Bruce was more of the guy who was watching the videotapes after the game. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew what he was doing, but he was the one figuring out what went wrong and how we could do it better tomorrow. And that was a line straight out of that video that you showed, Richard, is doing it better tomorrow than you did today. And that's what he was dedicated to. And that's why he was such a loyal employee, is that, I mean, it was not about him. It was not about his personal gain. It was about the good of the company being able to do better tomorrow, There was a fire drill that we had one time. Now, who doesn't like a good fire drill, right? I mean, come on. It's a company-approved 20-minute break. I mean, it's like, hey, go outside and hang out for a while. Like that's what a fire drill is. We were all really slow to get back to work that day. I mean, we took our sweet old time, all of us. Even Randy, she owns the company. She's like, let's take our time getting back to the office. Okay, Bruce, his name was called. I watched him. He's like, here, and he just went straight back into the burning building to get back to his drawings. Ever since then, we always joked that, Bruce, the building could be burning down. It could be falling down. There could be armed militants taking over the building, and he would be working on his drawings. He wouldn't care. He's like, yeah, I got stuff to do. Like, whatever, I mean, so yeah, he was a workhorse. There was something that really spoke to me in the prayer. I think there was a line, shining stars. One of the things I'm really going to miss about Bruce, it's one of those really detailed subtleties of knowing him. But like I said, I got to know him really well, again, more on a technical level, more on how he thought. And it was something, though. I'm telling you, like, I'm going to miss Bruce's universes. Okay. When he was working, it's a common practice when you're doing a drawing to bring stuff in. So what you'll do is you'll have stuff and you'll copy and paste stuff into your drawing. You'll copy and paste nuts and bolts, common hardware, previous jobs that maybe have some, relevance or features that you want to copy. Well, Bruce took that concept and he multiplied it by 100 billion. He would get up to go get coffee and you'd look over at his computer screen and it was like looking into the night sky in all of God's creation. I mean, I'm not a physicist, but there were more entities on his screen than there are stars in the universe. And I know physicists would take exception. They're like, oh, well, that's not impossible. That's impossible. I'm like, well, you haven't seen Bruce's screen. Have you seen Bruce's screen? I saw it. And there would be a dust cloud. You'd zoom in on it, and it would be every screw, nut, and bolt ever designed. Like little tiny like screws that you'd use to screw your glasses together, and then the type of bolts that you'd use to bolt a roller coaster to its foundation, and everything in between. The only place I've ever seen a 2-inch diameter bolt was in Bruce's universe. Maybe somebody's making one. I don't know. I tease. He had his ways that were extreme and were funny, but it doesn't. He got results. Bruce got results. He did a fantastic job. I never needed to check. There were things that I needed to check because maybe I knew Bruce didn't know that, but the stuff that I knew Bruce knew, I didn't need to check. And that's, there's not many people out there like that. And he was a gentle soul, encased in perhaps a hard shell. He was the kindest, most gentle person underneath that. And in closing, what I have to say is I have a message for Bruce. Bruce would call in sick, maybe if he was feeling under the weather, but then he would call later to see how we were doing. He was worried about, well, did Matt have a chance to review that drawing yet? Because we really need to get going on that. And, he had a tough life. Look, he had a tough life. He worked really hard. And I hope my message to Bruce in his afterlife is, look, we're screwed without you. We don't know what we're doing. We're still adapting. It's not going to be easy, but don't worry about the drawings. We'll find a way. Bruce, you worked hard enough. Kick your feet up on the beach, have a cold margarita on one side, Jesus on the other, and just rest in peace, Brewski. That's
Thank you. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you,
So
Matt.
good.
That was lovely.
Yes, Matt.
Who'd like to go next?
Well, I got a story about Bruce.
Yeah.
I've known Bruce a long time. And I got to tell you what, so there was a couple of times when I took him down to the hospital. What's the name of that?
Cedar
Sinai. So it was 3 hours down there in the
Beverly
traffic.
Hills, yeah.
And then 6 hours with Bruce, waiting for these doctors to see him. And I knew that just by knowing Bruce, his blood pressure, he's had all these, these, what do you call it, checks he did daily. And they're always like out of control. So I was constantly telling him, Bruce, what do you plan on doing? And it was, he wanted to get his heart checked. And Bruce found out that day that the vessels around his blockage had already been built, and God moved him in his heart, so it's still carrying on. And he was trying to convince the doctors there that they should open up and, give him open heart surgery. And it was like, convince him that and they were trying to convince Bruce that he is not eligible for that because of his condition. So we're kind of both down and out, and we're driving back in traffic, and he's down and out, and we're talking about it. We're praying. Bruce would pray. I'd pray, but we do our best and try to make him feel a little better, which, I did a lot of time for Bruce and did a lot of prayer for Bruce. Bruce was really complicated for me. He was like an iceberg sometimes, So his bonsai, I have this other story too, was where his secret life was, I thought,
This is children.
Yeah,
Children.
and his work, of course. His work was busy, but he talked about it all the time. So we're going back, and he says, Bruce, he says, you know what? I'm a little hungry. And so we're driving through Thousand Oaks. I go, yeah, Bruce, I bet you are. So we didn't eat all day long. And then we go by with his, he said, you know what? I got to watch my food, watch my diet, stuff like that. I'm really going to change now, Dan. I go, yeah, Bruce, I hope so, So we're driving by Newbury Park, and we see In-N-Out. And we go, what do you think? And Bruce says, so we said, he says, what do you think? He looks and goes, let's go eat. So we pulled in there, and we slammed down some combos. But that's how it was with Bruce. It was, we would go through all this stuff, but I would try to make Bruce happy. So there was a time when he wanted me to take care of his bonsais at my house in Ventura. Oh, I got to tell you what. So he called me, okay, I think it's going to be a little sunny in your backyard today, so I have to move his plants around. And also, he always thought I never watered them enough. And it's a little pot like that,
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to not water them enough, And then there was little brown things that go on the trees that I had to take care of. So after about 3 days, Bruce, I can't do this, Bruce. I cannot do this the way you want me to. I think I'm going to kill him. And he goes, well, no, you'll be okay, Dan. So another few days we do that, and I had to bring him back. I said, I can't do it anymore, Bruce. But I was with Bruce when we were at the fair, and we came back there, and he didn't tell me how many bonsais they were on display for him that he was presenting.
There were like 4 or 5.
Yeah, and he had blue ribbons. Blue ribbons on all of them.
And
I was
so
in
humble.
shock.
He was so humble.
He goes, oh yeah, and that kind of helped me when we bring him back in the car and to carry him a certain way. So I remember Bruce like that. And I also remember Bruce loved to sing. Yeah. So if you stood next to Bruce during worship, he loved to sing, but he'd sing just below, where everybody else would sing. And he was a sweetheart. He had a lot of things that he regretted, that he couldn't have, or things he wanted in life. And it all had to do with love. He was just a sweetheart.
But he had a really great relationship with Liliana.
Yeah, with my
granddaughter. And she's like 4, and he'd come over. We after
Baby
church
fighting.
for lunch, and Liliana is telling him how to play the game. And he's not playing the game, shoots and ladders or something. And he wasn't doing it right. And there she is berating him for not playing it right. And he's sitting there, okay. It was such a sweet, they loved each other. They played games together. It was such a side of Bruce that we've never seen. And I'm sure a lot of people have not seen. But for him and Liliana to sit together and play a game, or even she was teaching him how to play, I think they were playing Uno, and she was trying to teach him how to play Uno. It was so precious. Yeah. It was so cute. Yeah.
It's really hard for me to tell her.
He was they had a great relationship. It was, and Liliana loved Bruce too. She'd always ask about him. Yeah.
Oh, thanks for that, Gina.
We miss him. We really miss him.
Yeah. That was a rare glimpse that none of us had.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little glimpse into that. I led the prayer team with Richard, we still do. And a dear friend had infertility issues, but finally got pregnant, and it was really exciting. And she was putting on a little weight. And Bruce, in his very fun, sort of childlike way, mentioned it. I don't remember how he said it to her, but he was mean. He was, like just saying what he saw. But, the friend took offense to it and called me and said, guess what Bruce said? And I'm like, what? And so I checked in with Bruce, and I said, Bruce? He goes, oh, I said something wrong. And I said, well, okay. Yeah, you did. He goes, do you want me to go back and apologize? I go, are you okay with that? He goes, I can do it. So sure enough, he goes up to this friend and goes, I understand from Kathy that I need to apologize for saying something about your weight. I don't even remember what I said. But would you can you take my apology? And my friend said, of course, Bruce. He goes, yeah, I wasn't meaning it the way I think you heard it, but I should still say sorry. I won't try to cover up what I was saying, but I was kind of excited for you more than anything. And my friend said, "Oh, Bruce," and they hugged and kind of went on their way. So I felt privileged to have been a part of that. And he just took that in and was able to give away love to that person. And I always appreciated that story. You know, it was a part of him that, you know, I got to see that even at times he was before COVID and before lockdown, he was losing some weight.
Yeah.
And he was looking really good and we had lunches after church on Sundays. And, you know, I still love to sit with him and just chat if I could. But this one particular Sunday, I came up to, you know, sit at a table with everybody and I went, "Bruce?" He goes, "What? You don't recognize me?" Because he has lost weight. And I said, "Bruce, you look fantastic, man." And he just glowed, you know, a little bit of affirmation for him was he just glowed. He goes, "Oh, thank you, Kathy. I'm working hard here." And I just affirmed him, and he goes, "You know, I worked hard and I'm proud of myself too." And I said, "Well, you should be, because you look fantastic. I'm very proud of you." He goes, "Thanks." And the last thing would be when he, like Richard mentioned, that when he would pray for people, he had this childlikeness to him, which is actually a beautiful gift, I think, to this world. You know, and Jesus even talked about that. You know, we got to sort of look at the kingdom in that way. And so, you know, we'd pray for somebody and I'd always make sure I'd wait because he'd want to pray. And so I'd give a lag time and he would definitely jump in. And when he would pray, it was with such purity and love, like we were talking about, that part of him, that love and purity would come out when he'd pray for people. And he would, as I heard him pray for somebody, I was taking in what he was praying, sometimes for myself, maybe something hit that was similar for me. And it would be just very simple words, but somehow they kind of like the iceberg thing, you know, it's simple words, but they were very deep. It's almost like the gift of him being childlike would help somebody more than, you know, long detailed words about things. And he would just, I don't know, I had him pray for me a couple times too for things, and there was just a lot of love there, and not a lot of words, but just the right words.
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, Bruce and I had a thing about donuts. We'd go hang out together in the general vicinity of where the donuts were. You know, neither of us really said why we were there, but it was, "Oh, Bruce, how you doing?" And he'd say, "Really?" We'd get in these conversations, and at one point I was trying to lose some weight, so I decided that I would only have if there happened to be a chocolate glazed donut there, I could have it. But if it wasn't there or anything, then no. And I mentioned that to Bruce while we were waiting. I said, "Well, you know, I'm only having one kind of donut now. It's my weight loss thing." And he said, "I'll eat it for you." Thanks. So for a while he was gifting me with the with eating my donut, and for which I guess I thanked him. It was a mixed blessing, but then for a while I wasn't going over there at all because what's the point? And he said, "Well, I miss talking," and I said, "Well, we're gonna have to find something to talk about other than donuts because someone keeps eating mine." And he said, "Well, I can leave it." I said, "No." I think it was then that we really started to get to know each other a little bit better. And you know, it was funny when we were on the prayer team together. Well, I guess it was, I was praying for him, and he had had some conflict with somebody. He was angry. I mean, he could get angry. And I said, "Bruce, what's going on beneath this that's making you so angry? You know, what just got tweaked that you're so upset about this? Because to me, it wasn't an earth-shaking thing. And he said, well, I just care about him so much.
Oh.
And that just tugged at my heart because, you know, here's this guy with kind of a gruff exterior, but I think that exterior was pretty thin. And I think that, you know, the caring was as big as all outdoors, honestly.
Yeah.
So those are some of my Bruce memories. And when we get back to having church in person, I guess the chocolate glazed donuts are all mine.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bruce.
Jenny, she's too funny. I have a story sort of similar. When you go to Vineyard and you walk through the door, and there's people that sit in certain areas of the church, right? We all know that. And Bruce always sat a table over from the donuts. Do you remember, Jenny? So anyway, I was trying to do some weight, you know, losing some weight. And I walked in the door, and of course, you know, my eyes gravitate to the donuts. And I said, no, I can't have it. And Bruce was on the next table. I said, no, I'm going to introduce myself to somebody new. And as I walked towards the donuts, Bruce is in that next table. I sat down and said, oh, hello, how are you? So he's been a real blessing for me, because when he would sit there, it was sort of a reminder when I walked in through the church door and looked over at the donuts, I would look over at Bruce and give him a little wave. And I didn't have any donuts the whole time I've attended, because I'd look over there and he'd be there. And I said, okay, he's kind of like a little guardian angel for me, I think. Because,
Sweet.
you know, first he was gentle enough to speak to me, you know, but he didn't know my underlining situation that was going on, that I really wanted that donut, but I'm going to sit with this man and I'm going to introduce myself to him and talk with him.
That's
And
sweet.
And so it's just always so wonderful to see him there. It was always a reminder that, you know, God will provide. God will provide if we
Yes.
ask, and he gives us strength. And it may not come through a traditional way. It may appear itself in a different way. And I think that was Bruce for me. And that's why he was such a gentle soul when I spoke with him, is because that's what was going on then. So I will miss him. And when we open our doors, I know that table will be empty. But praise God, he's resting in peace. And
Yes.
maybe he's out there doing whatever he wants, right? Doing his bonsai. I never knew the story about the bonsai. That's really cool. Gives me a new outlook.
Yeah, thank you, Patty. I appreciate that. Randy, I was wondering if I could tap you. You said some things at the beginning before we started recording that I would love for you to repeat about Bruce and your relationship with him at BEMCO.
Well, I'm not sure what I said, just that he was one of our biggest cheerleaders and one of our most loyal employees. And I always kind of felt like, even though I knew, you know, his life outside of work seemed kind of lonely, and I knew he had the church though, and I knew that was a big comfort to him. But I used to wonder, how does this guy come to work every day, even ahead of time, and slog through all this stuff when he's got, you know, didn't seem to have anything else going on? But he was always there, and he was always cheerful. I mean, he had his attitudes, and he had his politics. You know?
Oh yeah.
Not go there. And it's funny because the only story I came to mind, or kind of mannerism of Bruce just at the moment, was that I would be sitting on my phone, either a personal call or a business call, and he would come in with a question or something to talk about, see me on the phone, and then stand there and wait for me to get off. I would say to whoever I was talking to, I have to go now because an employee has just sat down and apparently wants to talk to me, so I will. Never, you know, it didn't even dawn on him that, you know, but I knew that he was there for a good reason. He had something important to talk to me about. And so I always, you know, I hope I never lost my patience with him. But yeah, he was a fixture there for many, many, many years. So, you know, and my dad started the company in the early 50s. And so in this last year, we've had a lot of people that are, you know, getting up there and retiring. So things are kind of changing, and for people to see what happened with Bruce was, you know, kind of an eye opener too, to some of our older people who are retiring, and, you know, to get their affairs in order, you know, live life and do all that stuff. But I'm sure he's in a happy place now. And I really appreciate the bonsai thing, because he was so proud of that. And just another kind of thing, my sister-in-law works just one day a week on Thursdays. And that was the day that Bruce would bring a tree in every week on Thursday, so that she could see his tree that he was bringing. And I always thought, you know, I said, God, isn't it kind of precarious to take them back and forth and all that? And he said, no, you know, and he was so proud of them.
Yeah.
And it was nice of him to share that with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's about all the stories I have.
Great. Thank you, Randy.
Mhm.
Appreciate hearing all of that.
I just want to share one last thing. I went over to his roommate's house, Lance and Kelly Livermore. Some of you know them.
Sure.
And he had all his bonsai trees in the back, and they were stacked in a plastic kind of gardening thing, and just tons that he'd been working on, and beautiful ones like kind of behind Richard's head, and just beautiful. One thing Kelly shared, they couldn't be here today, but I wanted to share with you all, was about a month before we all had to go on lockdown, he was really close to these folks, Kelly and Lance. But she shared a story about a month before we went on lockdown that he came out of his room, and they happened to, like, you know, come down the hallway at the same time. And he looked at Kelly and said, Kelly, I need to tell you something. And she said, what's that, Bruce? I just want you to know that I have felt the most happiest I've ever felt these last year or so at work and here at home. I just, do I dare say the word, feel contented? And she said, you can say that. And so she wanted me to pass that on to you all, that there was a joy and happiness he had kind of even before lockdown happened and he got ill. He just, something in him settled where he felt contented with himself and his life. So I'm grateful that I was able to hear that story yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's good.
I have one thing I'd like to say that kind of corresponds to what Randy had to say, and also Kathy. So Bruce didn't show up for work on Wednesday. Now on Tuesday, he had a car issue, and in fact, I remember I always thought that the where he was getting his car from, Crown Dodge and Oxnard, was ripping him off, to be honest with you. And so I put in my own 2 cents. He's like, yeah, I got to take my car to Crown Dodge, and I don't know, maybe Crown Dodge is fine, I don't know, but I'm just like, Bruce, don't take it to the dealer, just take it to someone local. And so he ended up doing that, and because he ended up doing that, he was at work Tuesday. He was going to take off Tuesday to take his car to the mechanic. And so I got to see him on Tuesday.
Never knew that.
And yeah, so on his last day, a customer was asking for some specifics. I went to Bruce and I said, hey, Bruce, you want to help me sell a PITC? And he was like, well, yeah. He's like, yeah, dude. I'm like, all right, well, they didn't ask for a drawing exactly, but they asked what they were asking about a drawing would have solved. So I said, hey, I know you already got a PITC drawing started. You might as well just finish what you got. It was a few days. He didn't finish it because I knew it was going to take him through the end of the week. And but it made him so happy.
Oh.
He was like, yeah, come on. And then, like, when he left that night, he's like, yeah, I'll have it for you tomorrow.
So cool.
Dedicated.
Yeah.
That's all I got to add.
Thank you.
Oh, that's
Thank you.
precious.
Oh, wow.
Thank you, Matt,
Yes.
for being
Thank you for
vulnerable.
that
Thank
story.
you, Matt.
Yeah.
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 I know I
Thank
have
you.
a couple things, no poignant or funny stories, but um, Bruce was the first one who, because of his situation, got me into understanding some of the pain of the times we're in. And I know when I was listening to the bonsai video, I was coming up with all the analogies and metaphors. So I won't do that again. And the iceberg thing too. You know, I knew when I saw him, he was an iceberg, and he proved it the first time I ever talked with him. We had a long conversation, and I learned so much about him. I mean, he was really, like Matt said, like looking into the night sky. You know, when you start seeing what's inside of him, you know. But the one in the video, there was one phrase that really caught me because of the way I felt when I heard, you know, about him being alone when he passed and everything. And it was something like in the creative process somewhere in the area between life and death, there's, I don't know how it ended, but it just captured me that that God was with him at that time, and there was healing going on. And the other thing that I wanted to say was the thing about Bruce, he really taught me something important about community and about the value of showing up, because he wasn't mingling and, you know, greasing the crowd or any of those demonstrative things ever, but he was always there. And one time I was looking around and I didn't see him right away, and I thought, wow, I kind of have come to depend on that. Why? Didn't know him that well. But there was something stabilizing, reassuring. I don't know what it was, but his just showing up was quite a lesson to me about how important it is for the rest of us. So
Nice.
I will really miss him.
Yes.
So I thought I'd say a couple of words. So so as in I guess every church body, you know, there's families that come together, there's couples that come, and then there's people that come by themselves. And like Bruce, I'm one of those people. So I got to know Bruce also by the donut tables, but also he went to a few classes that I went to before church as well. But Bruce was an interesting guy from the standpoint is that you could see him from afar, and he'd be perfectly content to sit by himself. And oftentimes he would be there by himself. And then when you go up to him and say, how's it going? Then he would just completely open up. You know, he would very personable. He would just talk and ask about you, and you'd ask about him. And I remember one day we have at the church we have this phone application, and it was funny because I didn't know his background in design, and obviously that's a technical area, but he was not quite up to date with phones, and I remember once he was just struggling so hard to get that phone to be able to download that app. He and I sat there. I think while church was going on, trying to solve the problem. But I too will really miss Bruce. He was just one of those guys that at one hand he was kind of the wallflower, on the other hand he knew everybody, you know.
Yes.
And so once you start a conversation, so personable. I really miss that about him.
Thanks, Peter. Alan, did you want to share any memory or thought about Bruce? Oh, we can't hear you.
Your mic is off.
Oh, shoot, we can't hear you, Alan. Darn. No, nothing. No.
Alan, maybe, yeah, we can't hear you. Maybe if you turn off your video, because you came in as a phone call, correct? Yeah, turn off your video and see if that, okay, there. Can you talk and say something? Oh, shoot. we
Maybe he
still
could
can't.
chat, put something in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
You can share something in the chat if you like. Although if he's on his phone, that might be a little tricky too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay.
Alan, I'm so
Well,
sorry.
this has been such a nice time. I really have enjoyed this. So I think what I'd like to do is just move to our benediction now, and kind of formally end things. But I'll leave the meeting going, and you guys can stay as long as you want. So, but I've really appreciated all of the stories and the memories and just different things that you saw that maybe I didn't see, and so on. Really, really good for us to take this time. So for a benediction, just as a closer, as a caboose on the train, I would like to again just express my gratitude and thankfulness for all of you for being here, and thank you for your friendship to Bruce. And to end this time, I would like to read some lyrics from a song. I mentioned earlier that Bruce liked Michael Franti. So I found a Michael Franti song, and I found some lyrics, and I just thought this would be a nice way to end our time together. So as you hear these words, it's from a song called I Got You. As you hear these words, maybe you can imagine Bruce saying them to you. So I Got You by Michael Franti. I got a deep feeling within my soul. And right now, I really need to let you know that each time I've fallen down inside that hole, you came and showed me there's a way to go. So we can love deeper, fly higher, see clearer, burn brighter, feel more than we ever did before. Yeah, we can swim oceans, climb mountains, dance like nobody's watching, live life like we never did before, through the highs and the lows. I Got You by Michael Franti. So thank you. May we all create bonsai well in however we're doing our bonsai. With whatever trees we have in our sphere of influence, and also understanding that we too are like trees in the hands of the master, and that we are in a process. We are in a process of moving and growing and changing. And so thank you for being here. Again, my heartfelt thanks, and may God bless you richly. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.